There is a piece of information that rheumatologists and orthopedic specialists almost never bring up during appointments, not because it isn't true, but because it doesn't come from inside the Western medical system. It comes from outside of it. It comes from a therapeutic practice that populations across East Asia have used for over 2,000 years to preserve joint mobility and keep their knees functional well into old age. And only recently has science begun to understand exactly why it works at the cellular level. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm going to show you the mechanism. Then you decide. If you feel that familiar discomfort in your knees when getting up from a chair, going downstairs, or simply walking longer than you feel you should, something is happening inside your joint tissue that goes far beyond mechanical wear. What most people don't know is that knee pain is rarely caused by bone friction alone. It has a silent chronic inflammatory component that persists even when you're resting. A state of low-grade inflammation that erodes the synovial fluid, deteriorates cartilage, and activates pain receptors. All of this continuously, like a fire that never fully goes out. And that fire has fuel, it has a name, and more importantly, it has an antidote. In 2019, a research group at the University of Tokyo published a study comparing joint inflammatory markers in two population groups. Japanese individuals over 70 with joint mobility considered exceptional for their age, and equivalent groups from other regions with chronic knee pain complaints. The difference wasn't in body weight, it wasn't in physical activity level, it wasn't in genetic testing. It was in something the researchers at first weren't even looking for: a pattern of consumption of a specific fermented drink, taken warm in small amounts repeatedly throughout the day. When they isolated the bioactive compounds from this drink and tested them on human synovial cells in the lab, the result was surprising enough that the study was replicated 3 times before being published. Now tell me, what state or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments right now, because the answer to your pain may actually depend on where you are. To understand why this drink acts on the knees, you need to understand what is actually wrong inside the joint tissue of someone with chronic pain. Synovial fluid, the fluid that lubricates and protects cartilage, has its production and quality directly affected by a group of inflammatory proteins called cytokines, especially IL-6 and TNF-alpha. When these cytokines are chronically elevated, the synovial fluid loses viscosity, the synovial membrane becomes irritated, and cartilage starts receiving fewer nutrients and more destruction signals. It's a cycle, and the worst part, it's self-sustaining. The damage itself generates more inflammation, which generates more damage. What the compounds in this Asian drink do, and this is the differentiator that most supplements available on the market cannot replicate, is act directly on the regulation of these cytokines, rather than simply masking the pain signal the way conventional anti-inflammatories do. They modulate, they don't blindly suppress, they modulate. And that difference is enormous for long-term joint health. The drink in question is prepared from the fermentation of green tea with a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast, what the Western world came to know as kombucha. But not the industrialized version you find on any grocery store shelf. We're talking about a specific formulation, enriched with fresh ginger root and turmeric, which is the version used by Japanese and Korean longevity communities for generations. The difference lies in the compounds produced during fermentation when these roots are present: glucuronic acid at higher concentrations, a greater density of bioactive polyphenols, and, most relevant to joint health, the generation of specific metabolites with documented affinity for synovial receptors. This is not magic, it's biochemistry. And the reason this isn't widely prescribed in the Western healthcare system has less to do with efficacy and more to do with the fact that non-patentable natural compounds simply don't receive the same investment in promotion as synthetic molecules. Had you ever heard about this drink before? Comment below with your city. I want to know where you're watching from. When you consume this formulation consistently, the protocol observed in population studies is 150 to 200 milliliters in the morning before the first meal, and another 100 milliliters in the late afternoon. The bioactive compounds enter systemic circulation and eventually reach synovial tissue through diffusion. What happens in the first 21 days is a gradual reduction in local inflammatory markers. It isn't immediate, but it is progressive and cumulative. The synovial membrane begins to respond less reactively, articular fluid partially recovers its viscosity, and pain receptors, without the constant inflammatory stimulus, begin to signal less frequently and with less intensity. The most consistent report from people who follow this protocol for more than 30 days isn't a complete elimination of pain, which would be biologically unlikely in advanced cases. It's a significant improvement in morning mobility, a reduction in discomfort going up and down stairs, and a perception that the knee simply responds better to movement. Beyond the Japanese study mentioned, research published in the Journal of Medicinal Food and in Phytotherapy Research has documented the anti-inflammatory effects of curcuminoids present in turmeric on synovial cells. Fermentation, as bioavailability studies show, enhances the absorption of these compounds by up to 3 times compared to consuming the root in isolation. Ginger, in turn, has its action on the arachidonic acid pathway, the same pathway that non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs block, documented in systematic reviews published in Osteoarthritis and Cartilage, one of the most respected journals in the field of joint health. These are not obscure studies. They are indexed, peer-reviewed research available in open scientific databases. The gap isn't in the science, it's in the distance between what science knows and what actually reaches you. This protocol is most indicated for people who experience joint discomfort related to chronic low-grade inflammation, which includes the majority of knee pain cases in people over 40, people with excess weight, sedentary individuals, or those who have gone through extended periods of systemic inflammation. It is not indicated as a replacement for medical treatment in cases of severe structural injury, rheumatoid arthritis in acute crisis, or situations that have already been evaluated and require orthopedic intervention. No wellness protocol replaces professional assessment. What this video proposes is a complementary resource, and for most people, an accessible, safe resource with growing scientific support. Before I wrap up, I need one piece of information from you. I want to know, have you been feeling this knee pain for more or less than 2 years? And where do you live? What city or state? Why am I asking? Because depending on the region where you are, the ingredients that make up this drink have different availability and local names. And in my next video, I'll show exactly where to find each one, adapted for people in different parts of the world. So do this for me. Write your city in the comments and how long you've been dealing with this pain. That helps me deliver the right content for your specific situation. What you saw in this video is just the surface of something much deeper about how the joint wellness system works, and about how small, consistent changes in what you consume can measurably alter the inflammatory chemistry of your body. Science already knows this. Ancient populations already knew this. Now you do too. The next step is simple. Comment your city below and hit the notification bell, because the next video will show the complete protocol with exact amounts, timing, and how to adapt for people already on medication. That's coming soon, and subscribers will get it first. Your mobility is not a matter of age, it's a matter of information.